Okay, soon we'll have, I mean, we already had actually 600 years since he was born. So he was born on the 14th of February. He didn't have a Valentine because he took, you know, some kind of, I forgot how it was called, an oath or something. He committed himself to to a religious modus vivendi, so he never got married, and I'm sure he didn't have a Valentine. But at that time, probably there was no Valentine's Day, so at least in
True.
Italy. Anyway, so Leon Battista Alberti, he was one of the quintessential Renaissance creators, because he was not just an architect, but he was many other things. Mathematician, he was even wrote a novel. He wrote poetry. He wrote treatises on painting. He painted. He sculpted. He did everything. He did everything because he was a Renaissance man. In fact, he was almost you know, the pioneer of Renaissance. He was not the only one, and it would be wrong to you know, to claim that he was the only one. It was in the air, the Renaissance, but he was one who exemplified, I think, the most in a most convincing way that new spirit. But Alberti is very interesting because he's considered the first architect in a way, because as opposed to Brunelleschi, who was born in if I'm not wrong, in 1377. So Brunelleschi, when Alberti was born, he was 27 years old. But Brunelleschi was already ending an era which belonged to the Middle Ages. But Brunelleschi himself, they were contemporaries for about 40 years or so. I think Brunelleschi died around 1440 something. So for about 40 years, they were contemporaries. But one was ending an era, the other one was starting an era. So it was a very interesting, it was this transition from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance, which was not, you know, precisely definite, and it was not a threshold that had precise dimensions. Of course, it was that intermediate phase was complex and fluid. But as a philosopher I met accidentally in San Lorenzo in Florence told me, Brunelleschi, the last carpenter, and Alberti, the first architect. But today is the birthday of the first architect, so I will begin. So Leon Battista Alberti, born, as you see, February 14th in 1404, was an Italian Renaissance humanist, author, artist, architect, poet, priest, linguist, philosopher, and cryptographer. He epitomized the Renaissance man. Wow. Why don't we have something like this these days? I mean, we have people who, you know, occupy themselves with various things, but we are still in the age of the specialist. That very specialist about whom Walter Gropius said, the specialist is the one who always repeats the same mistakes. Okay. Although he is often characterized exclusively as an architect, as James Beck has observed, to single but one of Leon Battista's fields over others as somehow functionally independent and self-sufficient is of no help at all to any effort to characterize Alberti's extensive explorations in the fine arts. I imagine the one who wrote this included architecture in the fine arts. Although Alberti is known mostly for being an artist, he was also a mathematician of many sorts and made great advances to this field during the 15th century. His two most important buildings are the churches of San Sebastiano and Sant'Andrea, both in Mantua. I would say his most important is Sant'Andrea. With San Sebastiano, there are problems, but you are going to see it. But he has other important works. this was the man from the profile. These Italians, you know, they still capture our imagination and the desire to dream. And I think we need mentors. We need people to inspire us. And he is one of these possible guiding marks. We just have to entrust ourselves to them. And I think we can fly just as they flew. Because what else is culture good for? To incite us, to make us want to achieve, you know, splendid things, if I am to use a word I very rarely use, ourselves. Now, the facade of Santa Maria Novella in Florence. If you go to Florence and you know, you come from the airport with a train, as I did, once you exit the train station, designed actually by a very important Florentine modern architect, Michelucci, you see Santa Maria Novella is right across the street, well hidden behind some large advertisings, modern advertisings, and you are going to see them in the second presentation. This is he just did a facade, but this facade is very, very important for the history of architecture. You know, you would say, come on, architecture is about space. It is true, it's about space as well, but architecture is not just about space. In the four quarters of, in the four books about architecture of Palladio, Palladio never mentions space. So the obsession with space is a modern obsession, you know, because we reduced architecture actually to space. There is nothing else. There is no tactility, no tectonics, no ornaments. We only have, if we don't have space, we don't have anything. But this is another complex discussion, you know, what is space after all? Because, for example, Ingmar Bergman in his great film, Fanny and Alexander, he quotes from Strindberg, who said, space and time do not exist. So there, if the architect is obsessed with space, which does not exist in the opinion of the great writer Strindberg, then what are we left with? Anyway, I am polemical, but I am polemical because I think we simplify architecture too much in the name of a dogma, because modernists fought against dogmas, but this is actually what happens with the revolutionaries. They do a revolution in order to turn themselves into becoming conformists. So that's exactly what happened with modernism. It was a reaction against the excesses and the dogmas of the past. What did he do? It established its own dogmas. And one of the dogmas was banish the ornament and concern yourself just with space. Here we don't have space. We have just an elevation, a facade, a bidimensional work, but it is an incredible one. Look at this. You would say, well, what's so special? Well, there are many reaches here. If you go to Florence, and you will see in the second presentation where I took myself photographs of things you are not going to see on the web or not even in the books, things that attracted my attention. He's well known for, I don't know how these are called, but apparently he invented them, and for 400 years, architects used them, you know, for the Western facade, because this is the entrance in the church. And as you know, the habit is with churches, Christian churches, you enter through the west door and you move towards the altar, which is where the sun rises, meaning at east. But here there are interesting things. Is even a solar clock right here, and there are cryptical ornaments here, which probably have a story to tell, which I do not know. I don't know their symbolism, but this is what I'm trying to say. A bidimensional entity like a facade could be very interesting and rich and significant architecturally if we understand that architecture is not just about space. This is Santa Maria Novella. And what can we say? I mean, can you remove ornament from the work of Alberti? It would be impossible. But if you remove all the ornaments here, what do you remain with? With something very, very dry and unconvincing. Why did he put the sun here? Well, maybe it's a good question. He didn't put here le bon Dieu, the good God. He placed the sun. This is a pagan gesture, I would say. It's not a Christian gesture. But the relationship between the Son and the God is, I would say, an intimate and organic one. So there are interesting things here that this facade, the more you analyze it and the more you plunge into it, you swim it in its complexities, you discover new things. You'll see in the second presentation some interesting details of this building, and I mean of this facade. Well, it was a mistake. I didn't even enter the building because I was preoccupied with the facade. In a way, I was snobbish. I knew the facade was by Alberti, but I'm sure that the church was splendid. This is the second time I use this word. Must be something wrong with me today. I'm probably very depressed. Pardon?
In the little painting over the door, is that Mary holding the Christ child, or what is that? I can't, it's too small to see exactly what's going on in that little.
Well, I don't see very well either with the eyeglasses that I have, but probably yes.
It looks like, I mean, the clothing is blue, and that's Mary's color in most iconography. And she seems to be holding something on her lap, and there are angels on the side. So
it should be the baby, not certainly not babka or some kind of.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, it's a Renaissance gesture, but even these doors here, you can tell is the beginning of the Renaissance. Even this arch, this is an arch that still carries the weight of the Gothic times. So he was really a pioneer in a way. He was bringing a new spirit to culture and to architecture, but still, of course, he belonged to his time, which was a time of transition. Palazzo Ruchelai. Now here again, he did just the facade, apparently. There are two works by him here. In Florence, he has 4 works, and you are going to see them in detail. This is Palazzo Ruchelai. He did the facade. What can we say? It's a Renaissance palace. Apparently, this palace also influenced other palaces in Florence and beyond Florence. There were other great architects who, around that time, also worked on palaces, of course, because they didn't build the social housings too many in Florence. In fact, none, as far as I know. But what can you do? Alberti was born in a noble family. Architects built for nobility and for kings and queens and for the clergy. And if you were unlucky to be born at the periphery, you would not have had a chance to have Alberti built for you. That's for sure. But even if he built for the nobility, for the aristocracy, still, beauty belongs to everyone. So, whoever passes by this building and other buildings by him or someone else can still enjoy them, even though they might not use them, so to speak.
I have a question.
Please.
In the facade of the church, the arches of the arcade beside the church, which do bear weight, are repeated in larger iterations in the facade, but they are just images of arches. They don't look like they're bearing any weight. And here we have pilasters and arches, neither of which seem to be bearing any weight. So it's the iconography of the older style that seems to be important as an element of ornament. These are not weight-bearing arches or weight-bearing pillars, as far as I can tell. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know actually.
Do we know?
I don't know if it's just ornament. This you are referring to this arch here.
Yes, with the pilasters with the...
It's possible that it's ornamental. It's possible.
And certainly the pilasters don't seem to be doing any work. Maybe the arches are.
But they could maybe be the fascia of a real column behind.
Possibly, yeah.
So you know the mask, so to speak, it does betray a certain truth.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, but yes, he designed just the facade. So he didn't do the whole building. So, you know, when you do just the facade, usually you don't have structural elements to consider except the self-sustainability of the facade itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't want your facade collapsing.
Right. Now, interesting what is happening here, because as you can see, it's this fragmented edge of the building. I don't know, the building was, it seems that there was another arch here. Could it be that this building, which was built later, just took a bite from the building by Alberti? I don't believe it. But it seems this is what happened. I don't think he, unless he was a promoter of what site a group, a North American group was doing, you know, with some kind of the aesthetics of the ruins. And but I doubt it.
Many great works of architecture have been destroyed by people who thought they were making improvements.
On the other hand, you'll see in Mantua, where his most important work, his own aggressivity towards a Gothic building next door, so to speak. In fact, you know, glued to his great church, and that disturbed me very much. It's true, the building anyway will arrive in Mantua very soon. So this is Palazzo Ruchelai in Florence. As I said, he has 4 works in Florence. He has 2 works in Mantua, and then there are 2 other towns where he built. You can see it's just a facade. It's like in New York City, you know, where towards the street you have a more elaborate and studied facade, and then if you look on the side, you see the, you know, the less studied and less architectonic reality of the building. Because, you know, in Florence or anywhere else, it's also a question of money. You don't have a lot of money to, you know, employ Alberti for all sides of the building. You can only employ him for the main facade. I worked actually once when I lived in the United States for an architect who was a Zen. He belonged to a Zen sect, and he was building the headquarters of the Zen community on the east side of the United States. And he surprised me. I don't know, the Zen community had a certain amount of marble at their disposal. And I asked him, where do you want me to employ this marble? A noble material, of course. And he said, in the back of the building where the garbage
That's a very Zen response.
Right, but I was shocked. I said, you know, are you sure? He said, yes, of course. And I understand from an attempt to, you know, to marry the opposites. The least, the third time I used this, or splendid part of the building needed the marble in order to gain, you know, some status within the building. Anyway, this is like an amusing little story. We look at some details. Again, we cannot say goodbye to ornament. It's impossible. although the ornament is not abusive at all. It's still, reticent in his work, but it exists. And look, I mean, even it in tiny, details, why did he do something like this? Well, it's a good question. Let's imagine what an answer might be. So, the ornaments, they have a role. They bring sensitivity into the work, into the facade. It's important to have these things. Otherwise, the building becomes, brutal, no? I mean, it's very possible that it becomes brutal or simplistic. I mean, these things give, I don't know, a certain spirit to the building, and they could contribute positively. They could also ruin a building, of course, when they invade the building, because the ornaments could also be abusive. And against their abuses protested the early moderns. But when you think about it, these were not 3D printed. These were made by human hands, by human beings. And it moves me, this fact that, people created these things with their own hands and with a lot of effort, no doubt. Anonymous hands, of course. Alberti didn't use his white hands. He was an aristocrat. He drew the plans or the drawings, but other people built the building. Now, this is also by him. It's a loggia, which now, when this picture I took from the web, but you'll also see the pictures in the second presentation that I took. At that time, I think there was some kind of a store here selling, I don't know, sneakers or something. At this time, I don't know, I see here's iceberg. I'm sure during Alberti's time, there was no glass here. So it was a loggia, but why, I mean, this space became an enclosed space, but that building is also by him. You see the columns of the loggia on the right. So here you have the dialogue between the Palazzo Ruchelai. This also belonged to the Ruchelai family. He did three things for this family, probably a very influential family in Florence. These two, and then another one which you are going to see twice, in the first presentation and the second one. Well, yeah, even now you can see it was a store. Florence, like many Italian towns and cities, have a lot of fashion stores, and sometimes, yes, a building by Alberti houses, maybe a banal, clothing store. Iceberg. I don't know what that is. I mean, I know what an iceberg is, but it's the name of a company, a store. But look at these details. What are they? Because they also appear at Santa Maria Novella. I find them very interesting. Do they tell a story? I don't know. Are they just decorations with no meaning? I don't know. But I think Owen Jones, whose birthday will be tomorrow, smiles with a certain sense of satisfaction, as he does when he looks at this capital. But look at, I mean, it's intricate. It's not just a splash of, it's not just a line or something. It's drawn with character and care, and somebody worked, with a certain dedication here for this little thing, you would say, today. I mean, who would do something like this today? Almost no one. Cappella Ruchelai, this one is where the client is buried. Yes, clients die too, like everybody else. The architect died, the client died, we will die. Yes, maybe it's not a comfortable assertion, but I think we have to be aware of this, that one day our life will end, just as it ended for the great Mr. Ruchelai, and it ended also for the great Leon Battista Alberti. This is why I think it's important to contemplate history, because history teaches us modesty in a way. Well, history also teaches us immodesty when we read about so-called great generals and emperors and so on. But all in all, the passage of time teaches us that we are all perishable, we are all vulnerable. Sooner or later, I mean, we are born in order to die. And here we see this sarcophagus was built for the client, for the so-called beneficiary, by Alberti. Here again, we have ornaments. What was wrong with this Renaissance architect? Why did he need these things, you know, these useless things which have no function at all? Why? Well, imagine this thing without them, you know. It would not have been the same thing, obviously. Now, maybe, yes, it's too busy here, and, you know, we can have all kinds of, you know, negative remarks. If what about here? You know, again, the past would not have conceived to just have a white wall from bottom to top and nothing else. No, it would have been inconceivable.
You know what? Oh, there's the rest of the Latin inscription.
Pardon?
I'm trying to decipher the Latin inscription over the tomb.
Could you translate it, please, Paul?
My Latin is shaky. I'm not sure. And I can't quite see all of it either.
Right. It goes around it. It's,
yeah.
Anyway.
I assume that the word on the left here is Jesum, from Jesus.
Right.
Right, and non hicus locus, you know, not here is the, maybe it's about the, it might have to do with when the tomb was found empty and Jesus had risen. That's my guess, but you know, my Latin has holes in it and I can't see the whole inscription, but I'd love to, maybe I can find it online.
Yeah, or maybe I have a few more pictures with it. Now it's still the, yeah, now you can see also around, you see Nazareth.
Yeah, yeah. I think it has to do with the idea that, you know, they come looking for Jesus and he is not here, he is risen. And we may hope to do the same at the last day. Something like that. Yeah. I'm guessing that's what it's about, but I would not bet any money on it.
but I have to say, you see, it's still an attempt at architecture parlante, at a narrative architecture. We don't do this any longer. You know, even, I mean, you know, our buildings do not tell any story most of the time. There are a few exceptions, but very rarely. And I think it's important to attempt to bring back narration, because a narrative architecture is richer usually. Here, of course, it's an easy example in a way, but we could extend it to other forms of architecture, even in the present. Now, this is the church where this sarcophagus, this chapel is. From the outside, it looks like this. I don't think it's a church any longer. It used to be a church. And within this building is what you just saw, the sarcophagus for Ruchelai, for Mr. Ruchelai, as I call him with a certain license. So the riches of Florence, but now we are in Mantua, and here it is his greatest work. I'm talking about Sant'Andrea in Mantua. It's a building that was finalized, was finished 1 year before he died. And so we can assume that his role in erecting this building was vast. Sant'Andrea, yes, in Mantua. You don't see very well. The building is truly a Renaissance I mean, the entrance into the building. This is a Renaissance architecture, but to keep the purity of the square and the cubical appearance of the entrance into the building, he crashes into, you know, into the older building. Here he is obturating the window, so there is no negotiation. I don't know, maybe in the second presentation I have details of this. There is no consideration of negotiating in some way with the previous building. This is the gesture of the new boss in town, so to speak, the Renaissance man who wants to assert his will and his sensitivity and so on. But this shows me, now I don't know if he himself was responsible for this, I don't know. But what I see now is that usually when you are in such a context where there is an existing building, an older building, and you build very near that older building, you try to find an intermediate element or entity or zone to negotiate, to make how to say, not a delicate necessarily. It's like in a dialogue between two people. In order to understand each other, you need to be less abrupt. You need to soften in that intermediate space between you and the other person. Here, we don't see any of that. But anyway, who knows? Who knows? I'm not in any way trying to diminish the greatness of Alberti because of this, but it tells me something, because the Renaissance meant the rising of the new man, the man who was not any longer submissive to God as the medieval man was, a man increasingly sure of himself, of his powers, which were real and remarkable, but we are still limited, no? I mean, you know, the Renaissance man was still a man, no? A human being, in as much as the human being of the Middle Ages were human beings. So here I see, it's almost like, it almost irritates me, because I see and I love the Renaissance. I do. I love all the geniuses of Renaissance. You name them, Michelangelo, you know, all the others, Brunelleschi, early, Alberti, Raphael, Leonardo, you name them. They are all beautiful guiding marks in our journey through life and culture. But I also see risks here, that in the name of a splendid human being, that David that won the battle with Goliath, we also risk of being Goliaths ourselves, insensitive and ignoring what preceded us or what is less convenient to us and so on. Maybe I'll say a few more things about this, because it's really something that is important to me. You see here,
his own design is compromised because the left corner of his triangle looks like it protrudes into the window frame of the older building.
That's what I'm saying. It protrudes. It's right here. I see a symbol of the arrogance of the Renaissance in relation with what preceded it. You know, it's just yes, it is protruding. It's entering into this building. It's violent. It's raping this building. Maybe not alarming in large scale, but that in terms of significance and symbolism, it is bothering. But let's not dwell just on this. It's a little so-called detail. Otherwise, the building is very powerful, and the interior is splendid. Unfortunately, I have to say, although I promote the ornament, this building was destroyed by ornament, and the ornament was not his. The ornament, it is covered. It was like a vacuum horror. Someone covered everything with ornaments. The building, look here, these are not by Alberti. These are not by Alberti. The Alberti used ornaments, but discreetly here and there. Here, the building is covered, everything is covered with ornaments. Please, if you do ornaments, don't do what ruined the great church in Mantua, Sant'Andrea by Alberti. You see, against something like this, we need an Adolf Loos. We need someone to say, no, no, this is a decoration which ruins the greatness of a great building. Yeah, excesses in both senses are vicious. Either excessively, displaying structure, and or excessively covering up everything with an abhorrent amount of decoration. Anyway, the building otherwise is clearly inspired by the greatness of Rome, of the ancient Rome, and maybe even Greece. It's a different mentality here at work. The Gothic cathedrals were truly great, but this is great as well, but it's with a different kind of greatness. We see, three. I thought of keeping this picture here. So we have the pediment, which is the triangular thing, then the entablature, which is this one, and then the pilasters. When I visited this building, it was closed because the church, at least this church, also had lunchtime, like many other places in the world. But I returned and I was able to enter. The interior is what can we say? It's fine. It's fine because, here I am advocating ornament, but actually structure could be beautiful too. And I would say here, I admire more the structure than the ornament. The ornamentation, for my taste, is excessive. But the rigor, the virility of the structure of the building as erected is formidable. And we'll see more pictures in the second presentation. It is a very impressive building. As long as you are not, you don't observe the myriad of ornamental details, you see the greatness of, and yes, I said what I said about space, but here space is also a major, it gives the force to the building, the manipulation of space. So you see again here the difficult, meeting between the two. Poor old the building, it didn't deserve something like this. There is another great church here on the right. You don't see it in this picture, but I think you see it on the other presentation. San Sebastiano, also in Mantua. This is, even here is difficult to know exactly what he did because he worked mainly on the facade. And I read that actually these two stairs, which I like, perpendicular on the facade, were added by other people later. I don't know, but still something of Alberti is here. And you begin to know now his language, his architectural language. It is based, even here is some kind of a square. There is a level of austerity. The building was not finalized, was not finished, so no ornaments. There is symmetry. There is the round arch. It is an architecture that is inspired by the ancient world and jumps over the hesitations, the doubts, the fears, the trembling of the medieval man. Although those that I just mentioned can be felt a little bit on the side elevation. I have pictures in the other presentation. So this is San Sebastiano, also in Mantua. So in Mantua, there are two buildings by Alberti, Sant'Andrea and San Sebastiano. The interior also is, well, maybe it was such a relief, because there are no ornaments. I mean, I know I'm turning against myself because I just advocated the cause of the ornament. And now I'm happy that there is no ornament, but I am happy because Sant'Andrea is, I think, as is suffocated by excessive ornamentation. Anyway, so.
Facade blank originally, or, I mean, do we know that the facade, there were these two big squares where there's nothing going on, in the way of ornament. Was it always like that, or?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Plastered over or bricked over, or yeah.
I don't know. I was not finalized. I don't know. These are works. They have some hybridity because the buildings. There was an older building there. You see here what is going on. So he worked in fragments, but still they give us something of who Alberti was. With Sant'Andrea, we have a more complete, unfortunately, as I said, is that ornamental views that I'm sure didn't belong to him. Anyway, here are the plans of the building and the sections. You see, he loved the square. He loved the square because he believed in, he was also some kind of an engineer, besides being all the mentioned things. He was a logical man, although he was also an artist. But you see, the plans, the sections are very conducive to be read through logic. What a departure from the Gothic spirit. Alberti in Rimini. This is a nice building, but it's not finished. It's the facade of Tempio Malatestiano. This temple was to replace a Gothic church, and it was not finished. This is the facade that Alberti started, but I find it very satisfying, so to speak, even as an incomplete work. Because I think the workings of the spirit of Alberti are still present. Well, it's true, I like ruins and I like even incompletion or imperfection, but I don't see anything wrong with it. You know, I don't know if it was so-called finalized, if it would have been more rewarding. That someone made these drawings, someone tried all kinds of diagrams on the facades of the buildings by Alberti. I don't know really if Alberti worked in this way. Maybe this is more like an a posteriori effort trying to explain to reason and through reason the mechanism of generating aesthetics that Alberti used. But I don't know if he himself worked in this way. Usually these diagrams come from the analysts after the work was done.
I do remember something from the course in architectural theory that I audited many years ago, which is that Alberti was Pythagorean. He had a kind of mystical number theory of proportion. And I remember that the number 30 figured prominently in that mysticism. So I'm wondering whether there wasn't a kind of belief in an ideal mathematical proportion going on in some of these.
That is possible, Paul, yes. And I felt it actually even at Chartres, which was a Gothic church. I one evening spent time there, a few hours in front of the western facade. And I don't like to read guides and so on. If I read them at all, I read them after the visit. So I'm a, you know, kind of a difficult tourist, so to speak. But contemplating the facade without reading anything a priori, I have to say that after a while, I began to see numerical interrelationships or interrelationships based on the numbers 2, 3, 6. And I even got up from, I was sitting on a stone there, and I measured with my feet, and I arrived at, I'm sure, I mean, this is what I felt, but then I verified by you know, trying to discover some dimensions with my own feet. There were numerical relationships there, and probably very sophisticated. It is known that those builders of the Gothic times, they had guilds of, and they had secret, so-called secret knowledge. They were complex builders. We are not like this. We are primitives in comparison. Well, it's also true that we have all kinds of tasks to resolve, you know, parking lots and all kinds of things that they didn't care about. But in terms of philosophical speculation or Pythagorean perfection, so on, we in this field, we are totally unprepared and even unwilling, because it's not part of our interest. And why? Because with despiritualized architecture, we eliminated vita contemplativa and we are just pragmatists. You know. So, you know, we impoverished architecture, and not just architecture, dramatically. You know, how much satisfaction could you have if you devoid architecture of, you know, its complexities? Which have to do with many layers of meaning. It's geometry, you know, numbers. We use a lot of numbers these days, but our numbers are totally devoid of any mysticism or symbolism. Or no, we just use numbers. Lots of numbers, telephone numbers, everything is with numbers. Even to enter here on Zoom, you saw that code, long code. It has, I don't know how many numbers, 20, 30 numbers. It's maddening. I personally...
Passwords you have to keep track of to use anything.
Yes, I mean, it's all, I mean, I believe we live in the age of the tyranny of numbers. This is a CAD drawing of the facade in Rimini by Alberti. Drawn very precisely, maybe a little bit too precisely, but anyway, it is, you can even read a little bit there what's going on the facade, and it is another rich facade. With the drawing seems to show how it was built, and anyway. Mm-hmm. Alberti in Pienza, and with this we end the first presentation. Pienza is a small town where if I understood correctly, a pope was born, and he wanted to make it into almost an ideal city. So I will read the text. Alberti is considered to have been the consultant for the design of the Piazza Pio II in Pienza. The village, previously called Corsiniano, was redesigned beginning around 1459. It was the birthplace of Aeneas Silvius Piccolomini, Pope Pius II, in whose employ Alberti served. Pius II wanted to use the village as a retreat, but needed for it to reflect the dignity of his position. Of course, those in power always welcomed such an opportunity. It's not very clear to me what he designed here, the square or this church or this palace or other buildings. I searched, but maybe not enough. All in all, Alberti was present in some form here. It's a small square, as you can see. It's really small, but I found materials on the web about it, that it was to be a little ideal city. This space itself is marked by the times of the Middle Ages with very narrow streets, and you know, such squares that exist in many other Italian cities, with a little fountain here. And I think it seems that he had something to do with this elevation, maybe even with this Palazzo. I don't know. But he was involved here in this village. Sorry. Okay. We are approaching the end of this, and then we'll quickly start the second presentation, which will be about Brunelleschi and Alberti. But we'll see new things about Alberti. It's nice now when you see a public space without cars. I think it's quite nice, and it's quite rare, you know, because the cars truly invaded everything. Okay, so now we go to the second one and the last one about Alberti. I called it On the Footsteps of Brunelleschi and Alberti, because now you'll see all the images I show are taken by me. I'm not a bad photographer, I was told, but I always had bad cameras. So if something dissatisfies you, please do not blame me, blame the camera. Okay. On the Footsteps of Brunelleschi and Alberti. I said it and I will say it again. I was visiting San Lorenzo by Brunelleschi, and you are going to see this great building by Brunelleschi. And when I was exiting, there was a young man reading a book near a door. I think he was some kind of a guardian there, but he looked like a very interesting man reading an interesting book. So I asked him, where is the fourth building that I wanted to see by Alberti? And that's when he told me, aha, you are turning your back on the last carpenter and you are searching for the work of the first architect. And then I understood that something that was actually correct, that Brunelleschi, he called Brunelleschi, who was the creator of San Lorenzo, the last carpenter, because he was a master builder. He didn't yet have, of course he was a great architect, but that naming itself started to come into being with Alberti, not just with Alberti probably, but he's epitomizes a new kind of creator in architecture who stays away from the building site, who has a kind of a white collar as opposed to blue collar. Brunelleschi, although he was a genius, he was rather a blue collar worker. Alberti was a white collar worker, you know, living with white hands, far away from the dust of the building site and so on. The intellectual. Maybe that's why Peter Eisenman loves Alberti now so much. I would have been very interested if Eisenman would have studied Brunelleschi instead. But this doesn't mean that, I mean, I don't want to be misunderstood. I love Alberti as well. Both of them, they were great. But on the left, you see the architect, the master builder that was leaving the Middle Ages, and Alberti, the architect who was already stepping into the next era, Renaissance. Brunelleschi did too. Brunelleschi is not a medieval builder. He is still a Renaissance man, but an earlier one than Alberti. Okay, so I am exiting the train station. I arrived in Florence. At that time, I didn't know that the train station was designed by Michelucci. He was the leader of a team of architects, young architects who built the train station. And so the train station is on the left. And this is the tower of a church whose facade is Santa Maria Novella's contribution by Alberti. So you will see now my trip through Florence and Mantua, searching for the works of Brunelleschi and Alberti. But before we arrive there, we see this Mediolanum Libertà anche in banca, of course, something having to do with money, and again money. Because Florence itself is a city that was a city of merchants. Even now, it's a city that has the fourth time, a splendid culture, but the banks are those that contributed in a way. I mean, the Medici family, they were bankers. And so is this, I don't know if tension, maybe it was not tension, but you do feel the presence of the money in Florence, somehow more than in Rome, for example. Anyway, the sneakers of this banker or whatever he is are, you know, flashy. They are yellowish, yellow. They attracted my attention. He seems to be happy because some percentage, didn't we say that the numbers are, I mean, didn't I say are terrorizing us? All these percentages, 1.70%. I don't know what that is. Anyway, it's about selling and buying. You see the arches. Also, I mean, we'll turn the corner here and we arrive at the Santa Maria Novella. and the arches influenced by the Gothic, but right across the little narrow street, that's what we saw. That's what I saw. You see the reflection of the arches of Alberti, and in the foreground, things that sell, because what can we say? We are in a modern era when we have to buy and we have to seduce the buyer. And I like these photographs because not because I took them, but I took them because I liked what I saw, because I see the contradictions, the tensions. Alberti is just an echo, is just a reflection. The great Renaissance man is just a reflection, and the so-called real thing is the merchandise. Anyway, you see now from the side the facade designed by Alberti, and now we can reflect a little on what Paul said, that about these arches, that they return to the facade, but without the structural role, which here they do seem to have. So here he designed just the facade, and I wonder if yes, probably the baby Jesus there, but still I can see it very well. Maybe here a little bit more. Anyway, it's probably what it is. But look at this corner. I took this photograph. This photograph you are not going to see in any history of architecture. And maybe, I don't know very well why I took this picture, but I see a complexity here, because a corner is usually, protruding towards the outside, but exactly at the corner, he creates this rectangular concavity. So these two sides were forming a rectangular convexity. But here, right in the corner, he goes the opposite, which is, I think it's an interesting detail. I don't even know if it belongs to, it's part of the elevation of the facade by Alberti. But I don't know if he designed this, maybe yes, maybe not. But I like to think that it was him. And I wonder why he did this. And I like to speculate that, this receding in the corner could symbolize, some kind of a wisdom, that if you would not have done this, probably the building would have been here excessively aggressive towards the outside. Imagine a sharp corner. So he's softening a little bit, although still with rectangular means, the corner of the building or the base of the building. I think it's an interesting detail. And of course, it would be hard to ask him now.
Get a Ouija board.
What he meant. But these so-called details are important. This man was thinking without doubt when he drew this building, this facade. It's just a facade. He was thinking about these things. Of course, he was. You see, it is eroded by the passage of time, by the elements. More than 550 years passed since this building was built. That's a lot, more than half a millennium, but still something remains. And I find it interesting and challenging. If a facade is drawn, is built with meaning and with richness of imagination and thought, then of course it provokes, even if it is just that, a facade, it makes you think and ask questions and wonder. And this is beautiful about any kind of creation, a poem, painting, building. If you invest thought and feeling into them as intensely as possible, then like a beneficial boomerang, it comes back to you and it reverberates. Maybe that's why Michelangelo said pittura è una cosa mentale, is a mental thing. The word concept is kind of associated with what he said. It's a mental thing, but of course it's not just a mental thing, but thought has to be present, and it is present, and it was present also in the Gothic times and prior to the Gothic times, of course, and it was always present when the human being did something with intelligence and application, with passion, with emotions, with everything. Now, you see, between this building, Hotel Minerva, which in my opinion could have done better to, but maybe it's, harmony through contrast. Here we have prose in the bad sense of the word, because there is also a good sense of the word prose. But here we have poetry. You see the difference between a building and an architecture. This is architecture and this is just a building. That's it. Although someone mimicked here, certain details from Palladio and even Michelangelo, but pathetically without success. And now I'm moving towards Santa Maria del Fiore, the great cathedral whose dome was erected by Brunelleschi. And if you didn't visit Florence yet, I have to say it is with great emotion that you walk from the train station, passing by the Santa Maria Novella by Alberti, and moving. You already see here the incredible dome by Brunelleschi, about which Alberti himself said that in the shadow of the great dome, you can house the whole population of Tuscany. He was exaggerating, but it's true. It's a majestic, huge work. And, navigating through these narrow streets, you see the tourists. There was no pandemic, so nobody cared. And all these tourists were moving towards the dome. Why? Because of the genius of art, because of the genius of engineering, because of the genius of great sensitivity. We need greatness, otherwise our lives are worthless. And when I say greatness, I don't mean an arrogant greatness. No, I think true greatness is both, exalted and modest. Here's something I don't know.
It's my plastic phone trying to.
Okay, thank you. So moving towards Brunelleschi. Getting close, unfortunately, as I said, when the pictures are bad, it's not my problem, it's the cameras.
I don't know what, just a minute while I get rid of this. All right, here we are.
Okay, so moving to Santa Maria, towards the building. The building was not built by Brunelleschi. He just covered with his great dome. And this happened after a long time. The building didn't have a way, didn't know how to cover this tumulus.
Screen here. Sometimes computers interrupt you, and I have to have it on, but it's screwing me up. Let me.
Okay.
If I log out, can I still get back in?
Well, of course, sure.
All right. Oh wait, here's your screen. Okay, I'm back.
Okay, so I don't know why my camera didn't focus properly. I probably didn't.
This is a consent. Whatever happened there interrupted. It's not. All right. Go ahead. I'll see if I can get back.
Okay. So, but not all pictures will be like this. Just sometimes I had this problem. Sometimes it's also interesting, to see pictures, in a foggy way like this. But it was not intentional. It was.
I've been locked. I've lost your screen, and I'm back to the announcement of the meeting.
But you are present here because we hear you.
Yes, but I can't see your images. So I can't see what you're talking about. And I don't
know why you don't see it.
I think it has to do with that thing that came blasting through and interrupted me. Go on, I'll try to figure it out. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't know what to do. Do you want me to?
Go ahead, continue for the other people, and I'll get back on as I can. I think I have it. I just have to get this bigger.
So do you see it now or not?
In a tiny little square, I see DC.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe if there is anyone else here, you could explain what to do. You are on Zoom, but you don't see the.
Yes,
this little tiny.
You have pinned the profile of Dan Coma. You need to unpin it, and you'll be able to see the slide share.
Okay, but how could he unpin it?
Yeah, I can't figure out how to get rid of the interruption.
Of me. Just get rid of me, Paul, please.
You need to right click on the person, and it will pop out three.
All right, well, let me get back to the DC screen. And show grid video. All right, right click, chat. I don't want to chat. I want to get back into the, oh. That just lets me chat. Please go ahead. I don't want to.
No, I can. I have to stop now I stop the sharing and then I don't know. I because I myself not mastered it.
Back to me. All right, I'm back. I'm back. I got it.
You are back, but I lost it.
But all I see is DC, so your images are not coming on yet.
I lost it now, and
maybe if I silence my phone, I won't get any more interruptions.
Do you see the screen now?
I see DC.
No. This.
Does anyone else see an architectural image instead of DC?
Maybe it's fine.
No, not, because the share screen has been stopped. But before, yeah, I was able to see the sharing.
Yeah, before, yeah.
Yeah.
Is host disabled?
Do you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Bingo. Done. All right, we're good.
Okay, just a second, please. The recording.
It's a blurred picture of people in the square.
Okay, so you are seeing it. Okay, I'm moving around Santa Maria del Fiore. These interruptions are agitating me because myself, I struggle with technology sometimes, and I'm doing this recording and I talk spontaneously and I become nervous. Anyway, here are the people in line waiting to enter the cathedral. Yes, before the pandemic. Sorry again for the unclarity. Here you see my corduroy pant. Anyway, now we are back to normality in terms of the technicalities of the picture taking. I moved away from the Santa Maria del Fiore, and now we are in front of another building by Brunelleschi, Ospedale degli Innocenti. This is a building by Brunelleschi, very close to his dome and to Santa Maria del Fiore. There was a piazza, there was a market on that day. So this building, this horizontal building, is another important building by Brunelleschi, destined for like a hospital for orphanage or a hospital for children, Ospedali degli Innocenti. You see here, degli Innocenti per l'assistenza dell'infanzia. I think here there are these effigies with children I think they were done by Luca della Robbia, another important Renaissance artist. Anyway, we move forward. So what you see now is Ospedale degli Innocenti, Brunelleschi, and not all pictures are great, but at least you see so-called real life. There was construction here because they were doing some important interventions at the interior of the building. From the east coast to the west coast, two sides of the revolution, Goethe, Bago, I don't know, somebody wrote this, catch him or whatever. It's, you know, life, present, in the present, you know, people aspiring for a revolution, for a change, for anyway. Now I was moving. Now I'm still in front of the building by Brunelleschi, which is Ospedale degli Innocenti, and here we also see something like this, of course, because we talk about Alberti and we talk about Brunelleschi, but the brutal realities of life as lived exist everywhere and every time. There are also bucolical scenes. It must be pleasant to have a little balcony right across the piazza from Ospedale degli Innocenti. And we see the dome, the great work by Brunelleschi. And this is the narrow street that unites this piazza with Santa Maria del Fiore. Now, just look at the silhouettes of the human beings here, how small they are, and you realize how big this dome is. I mean, Brunelleschi was built maybe the quintessential dome here, and he did it with the technical difficulties. There are all kinds of innovations that he generated. I don't know enough about this, so I will not comment on it. But it's worthy of learning about how he was able, because for a good number of years the church was not covered here. They didn't know how to cover it, to make a dome. The tower here was built by Giotto, the great medieval painter, who also announced a little bit the coming of the Renaissance. So, you know, it is impossible not to be moved, because here we have Brunelleschi, here we have Giotto. Why is it that this meritocracy is not present everywhere and every time? You know, at that time, I like to imagine, but maybe I'm wrong, but I like to imagine that only the best had the chance to truly exercise their talent. Now you see my left shoe here, and it was a lot of construction here. Not far away from here, there is a place where somebody told me is the best ice cream in Italy. I mean, any ice cream in Italy is good, but apparently this one is somewhere here on the left is the very best. So the tower, Giotto, truly a great painter. The dome, Brunelleschi, truly a great architect and master builder and inventor and everything else. I'm nostalgic now. I wish the pandemic will go away and we could travel again, because that's how you truly learn and that's how you truly see. But we can still use the internet conveniently in many respects. Okay, so let's see what else is here in this strip. I think this is still Ospedale degli Innocenti. I came back to it, I don't know for what reason. Yeah, it's Ospedale degli Innocenti. You see, we are building the new museum. The text is in English because a lot of North Americans and British people were visiting Florence. Plus, this is the language of the world still today for many nations. a very active still city, you know, because nourished by significant tourism and with its riches, you can imagine. Florence is here. We see Luca della Robbia with the ceramic works, bas reliefs. I think they are very moving and very, very nice. Again, it's about narrative architecture. Do we do something like this today? No. No hospital, doesn't matter, or kindergarten even is ornated or it doesn't communicate anything about the functions of the building. But at that time, it was not like this, as you can see. The naming of and the function of the building was inscribed graphically, pictorially, through details or otherwise on the very facade. It didn't need any other things. You understood looking at this that this was destined for children, for infants, for the innocent ones. Okay, unfortunately, suffering ones, because it was a place for the suffering ones. But again, we are dealing here with a narrative architecture, architecture parlante in French, that because of it, I mentioned it a day or two ago, certain people derided l'architecture parlante of Boileau. Not Boileau, sorry, Boulet. Maybe even Perret. Anyway, we move forward. We move forward through Florence live, and we see again the Great Dome by Brunelleschi. The evening is approaching, some pictures in black and white. I couldn't make up my mind to use colors. Sometimes I like more the black and white pictures. This massive, massive church, I mean, it's colossal, and somehow because of the narrow streets, it becomes even more impressive and massive. And it is a very moving experience when you are in it, moving towards it and in its proximity. It's huge and it's powerful, and it is the house of God. That's what it is. There is no mistake about it. I mean, the dome in Florence is still dominating the city. I don't know. This is not part of the dome, but it attracted my attention. Even the scaffoldings, you see, you have scaffoldings. You don't see perfectly the perfect building, but it's okay. It's life, it's process, the processuality of life. It's alive. And the sun was setting, as you can see. So the dome was by Brunelleschi, not the whole building. And he was praised for this great work. And it's possible that Alberti was right, that, I mean, at least metaphorically, that the whole population of Tuscany will find room in the shadow of the great dome. The tower by the Campanile by Giotto. Why did the authorities or the officials or those who led Florence trust a painter to build? Because they had a different conception about what architecture is. We wouldn't do something like this unless we are in Vienna, because, you know, we don't trust painters. We think they cannot build. But how come Giotto was able to build? How come other artists were able to build during the Renaissance? What about Hundertwasser in Vienna, a painter who built many buildings? Because they have enlightened authorities. They understand that it's not such a long distance really between a painter and an architect. The architect sometimes paints, the painter sometimes builds. They are related. They are part of the family. But no, today this is inconceivable, at least in many countries. No, the architect has to go to school for many years and then obtain the signature right from the authorities. In this way, Giotto would not have built his Campanile, but in Florence at that time he did. And they didn't have specialists, you know. They also didn't have so much bureaucracy. I like to imagine, but maybe I'm wrong. Here I saw this poster I thought this person was Romanian, Chiara Stroia, but maybe she was Italian. Finalista su Rai Uno, Sabato, anyway, it's a singer. Anyway, moving forward. Now we are in the vicinity of the great San Lorenzo, built also by Brunelleschi, but this palazzo is by Michelozzi, a great Renaissance palazzo. I mean, look at those stones. But now let's look at the head of the policeman, and this is the church. I mean, you know, the riches of Florence are unbelievable. This is the church of San Lorenzo, Basilica, by Brunelleschi. Here is the chapel, the Medici chapel, where there are great works by Michelangelo. And on the left is Biblioteca Laurentiana, also by Michelangelo. So we are dealing here with the cream of the Renaissance achievements. This facade, which was never finished, as you can see, is like this since the 15th century. And even Michelangelo made a proposal for this facade. It was never built. Raphael also, it was never built. I launched a competition myself some years ago, a new facade for San Lorenzo. And if you want, not today, because it would take too much time. But one day I can show you some projects, very interesting projects. Why can't we do a modern contemporary facade to honor our time for this great building by Brunelleschi? On the other hand, it could remain like this as well. Through this door, you enter into it's a monastery, and it's the Biblioteca Laurentiana at the end of a corridor there, if I am to call it so. Anyway, the evening is coming, and my camera is showing signs of inability to handle the evening. Sorry again for the unclear pictures, but better times will come in the morning. Now the evening is coming to Florence, as you can see, and I had a place where to sleep, not far away from the dome, and so I was not worried about that. Unfortunately, that place does not exist any longer. It would have been very, very convenient, just 8 minutes by walking from the dome, the great dome by Brunelleschi. So back to Santa Maria del Fiore, back to the great tumulus covered by the dome of Brunelleschi. Even these temporary displays, here, graphic displays, I loved, you know, because they're about culture. And, you know, they are two-dimensional, of course. They are printed, it's printed matter. But somehow, you know, it's not about sneakers, it's not about banks, but it's about Michelangelo, it's about the tower by Giotto, and so on. So it's about culture. Although it's very possible those who paid for this were still the sneaker manufacturers and the banks. It's a work in progress continuously, because there is a lot of maintenance work that is needed. Il Grande Museo del Duomo, Firenze. Here is the work of Michelangelo. We need greatness. We need greatness, and we need enthusiasm. We need exuberance. We need creativity. I truly think even now at these difficult times with the pandemic, we can take revenge, so to speak, on difficult times through culture. We need culture. We need ideas. We need poetry. We need exaltation. We can do it. We can escape. Of course, turn off the TV and turn on your life. Your creative life. It's possible. I mean, the greatness of Florence is real, but some architects from there, not just architects, said to me when I launched that competition with a new facade for San Lorenzo, they said, well, such an idea would have never come from Florence because we are paralyzed by the greatness of our past. And I understand, if you are born in the shadow of the great dome by Brunelleschi, you can't be intimidated. You can't be, paralyzed. Although Florence also had an interesting avant-garde, like Super Studio, and the great architect Michelucci, who next year will receive, if God willing, the other Pritzker Prize from me. I mean, what can I do? I'm trying to, now I'm moving, I want to see a chapel by Brunelleschi. Michelangelo is buried here, entombed in this building. I forgot how it is called. For some reason, I always forget how this church is Santa Maria della Croce, maybe. And near it is a chapel, the Pazzi Chapel by Brunelleschi. Unfortunately, I couldn't enter because it was itself during renovation. Is a great chapel, truly great, by Brunelleschi. I have another presentation with images taken from the web, and I have seen it in another year. But it's a great, truly great work by Brunelleschi. It's a small building, but beautifully proportioned. I regret it, I couldn't see then. Now I took pictures of many chairs within a restaurant. I kind of like the complexity in a way. It was almost like an installation, an art installation. There were chairs that they tried to save, so to speak, during the night. So they stored them within the restaurant. But I enjoyed taking these pictures, and the camera, I think, enjoyed it too, because it didn't bother me with lack of clarity. Anyway, moving forward from the chairs in the restaurant back to San Lorenzo. This was the next day, as you can see, it's in the morning. And this is the Basilica. I will enter it now and you will see. So again, this is Brunelleschi. It's not Alberti, but we'll arrive at Alberti soon. Here is the courtyard. I wanted to pick up an orange from that orange tree, but I didn't have the courage to go there and do it. Although you see the oranges kind of disappear, for the height of a human being with the arm raised. But anyway, Biblioteca Laurentiana is here. Great work by Michelangelo. I think the entrance is here. But I'm not going to enter here. I enter though in San Lorenzo. San Lorenzo is truly a remarkable basilica. I love it. Personally, I like more the architecture of Brunelleschi than Alberti. Because here there was no, I know I'm contradicting myself apparently. There was no need here for excessive ornamentation. The building is beautifully proportioned and very luminous. It's a very fine building, both inside and, well, outside you saw it doesn't have the elevation resolved, but the interior is Renaissance at its best. Incipient Renaissance, if I would say. He had Il Braccio, a measurement unit that he used, that was used in his time, and everything is based on that module in this building. So Brunelleschi, San Lorenzo, Florence. Very, again, I'm contradicting myself because the space is beautiful in San Lorenzo, and the light. This is a little chapel on the side. I go kind of quickly because we have many images on this presentation, and I want you to see also Alberti because it's still his birthday today. But we can see, as I said, in parallel, Brunelleschi, the last carpenter, and Alberti, the first architect. Now I arrive at Palazzo Ruchelai, you already know it, by Alberti. So we are now in the kingdom ruled by Leon Battista Alberti. You'll also see the chapel that you saw it. Here it is with a different display, of course, because this picture was taken at a different time. There are lots of sneakers there in the facade. Some black and white pictures, which to me artistically are a little bit better than the other ones. Again, fashion and lots of little boutiques everywhere. Alberti, Ruchelai. I like this picture though, and in a way, I thought of using this picture because this egg on top of the head, this head symbolizes what Alberti was. Now, is a beginning, the egg, the beginning of the world, the beginning of Renaissance, and this egg stands there, maybe precariously, but it stands there as a symbol of what could come out of the head of the human being. Also, I would like to imagine that the egg is also generated by his heart, not just by the brain. But anyway.
Term egghead. In American slang, egghead means an intellectual.
There, yes.
So.
An egg, truly, in American slang,
yeah.
Egghead means an intellectual?
Yes, the term came into use in the 1950s by Dwight Eisenhower when he was running against Adlai Stevenson, who was perceived as too intellectual to be president. So Eisenhower won, but it was a term of contempt, actually, for an intellectual. Yeah. So,
but
just saying.
But do you know why? Why? I mean, the expression comes from where? Certainly not from this artwork here.
No. It's just American slang. It's a coincidence.
I know, but where does it come from? How to justify it? Why? What's the real?
I guess the idea was that the intellectual was out of touch, was always hatching some kind of impractical plan from the egg of his head. I don't know.
Right, this was living in his head, in other words.
Yeah.
Okay, back to Santa Maria Novella. I was planning to take the bus to go to Mantua, and you'll see me soon in the bus. So the bus station was very close to Santa Maria Novella by Alberti. You see a little detail, other details of the facade or ornaments. We still can see very clearly what's going on there. We see the sun clock, sun dialing clock. How is it called?
Sundial, yeah.
The sundial, yes, the sundial. You see it a little bit better here. Not much better, but the picture is larger. This is kind of interesting that something like this exists here. There is even a Chartres, but in the corner, and there an angel is holding a sundial, but the original was moved inside the cathedral because it was very precious and replaced with a copy. An angel holding a sundial is an interesting idea because the sundial in a way is about something else, but to have an angel hold a sundial is almost some kind of a meeting between religion and science. I like these ornaments, yeah, it was rather early in the morning. Now you see all these people here. Well, you are not going to see them for a while because of the pandemic. They were all Chinese, and what the Italians invented, so to speak, they built a huge mall where they were selling perfumes and other things made by Italians with a big discount only for Chinese tourists. So the Chinese, the tourists who flooded Italy, when they arrived in Florence, they were taken with special buses straight to that mall and have them ravish it. So you'll see, you see it's even written on it, the mall. So these were only Chinese. From what I know, you kind of see the Chinese tourists, they didn't even unpack. They didn't even go to the hotel. They would go straight to the mall. And that's how Florence used to make a lot of money. Look, the mall by bus, filled with tourists from China. And now I am in a different bus that didn't go with me to the mall because I didn't have the money to buy perfumes. I was moving towards Mantua, and you will see from the bus the great modern church by Michelucci, that one. Unfortunately, I couldn't ask the driver to stop. It's even called the church of the autostrada, of the highway. It's truly a great modern work by a great architect, Michelucci. But I only saw it from the bus and on the web and in books. But it's a very fine building. And we stopped for the gas, but it was still far away. I couldn't risk losing the bus, running to see a little bit from a closer distance the building by Michelucci. Okay, lots of, as you can see, vehicles, a lady sleeping in the bus. And now this is, I felt like in a Steven Spielberg movie somehow, approaching Mantua, you know, and what you see here, you know, it's Mantua. I mean, we are moving towards Mantua. I wonder what the terrorists, you know, September 11 felt when they saw approaching the, you know, the World Trade Center that they were going to enter into. Here we didn't enter like that aggressively into Mantua, but I don't know. It felt strange somehow to see this enclosed medieval city, and we were approaching it in this way. This is Sant'Andrea in Mantua itself, with the you know, signs of interventions on the facade, the scaffoldings. This I couldn't remove, but we already saw the building. Here you'll see other things. I couldn't enter because it was lunchtime, but I came back and you'll see the interior as I saw it. But I saw the space in front of the entrance. I saw the doors. I saw some inscriptions, some love inscriptions, some graffitis that exist everywhere in the world, where two human beings love each other or think they love each other. Anyway, I photographed whatever I was able to photograph because the church was with its doors locked. But as I said, 1 or 2 hours later, I was able to enter it, and you'll see the interior. When we look at buildings, we often forget, you know, how complex they are, and even during you know, renovations, refurbishments, and so on, there are a lot of things happening. So because I couldn't enter, I went to San Sebastiano, which you saw already, but now you see it through my eyes, so to speak. Here it is. So he has these two churches in Mantua, San Sebastiano and Sant'Andrea. This is a famous Chinese artist, contemporary artist, you know, polemicist and troublemaker, who had an exhibition in Mantua at that time. Wei, I can't pronounce his name. For some reason, I'm unable to pronounce his name. Anyway, Tempio di San Sebastiano. So it is a tempio, it is a temple. The temple with a Greek cross on the plan, and you saw it, was designed by Battista Alberti in 1460 and built by Luca Fancelli. The facade with its classical details and vestibule with 5 supporting arches was altered in 1925 when the incongruous staircases were added. I actually like those staircases. On the ground floor is a crypt as large as the church, characterized by a thick network of arches and pilasters. The temple contains the tomb of several of the Fiore martyrs and is a memorial to the war dead. So, you know, Alberti, but not just Alberti, there were other people involved. This is the case with many buildings in general. And yeah, architecture is a collective art. We have the so-called great creators, and maybe without the two words so-called, but we also have many people whose names we do not know, but without them, the building would not have come into being. So I photographed whatever I was able to. I couldn't actually get into the building. I photographed through the doors, through whatever I saw, but you see things that usually you cannot see on the web because nobody, you know, took the time probably to, I mean, there are people, of course, who took many photographs, but on the web, it depends. If you are patient, maybe you can discover all kinds of details and pictures from the less glorious sides of the building, like here, the back of the building, the steps, whatever I was able to photograph. San Sebastiano, Alberti, and not only Alberti, as I just said, Mantua. And I love matter. I love the bricks. I love the reality of matter, you know, because these things were brought into this place through human effort, through work of people like us, like you and me. And, you know, I took photographs, but the building was erected by other people in a different century or maybe different centuries, seen from a little bit far away. Yes, San Sebastiano, Alberti, we still see the Campanile here, and I was moving back towards Sant'Andrea, and here you see a fragment of the elevation of Sant'Andrea. Hopeful that it opened, and it did open, that's why I came to Mantua, to see these two works by Leon Battista Alberti, Sant'Andrea and San Sebastiano. But there are other, you know, like this church was not built by Alberti, and it's right across the piazza from Sant'Andrea. Also equally interesting and good buildings, you know, legitimate, but we do not know the architects, or I do not know. There was no one so-called famous. But we'll go now inside Sant'Andrea, or I was waiting a little bit. It was not yet the time to open. It's an urban architecture, and I like this fact in Italy, where you have this cluster, this gathering of buildings, you know, profane and sacred, church, shops, apartment buildings, and so on. They are brought together during centuries. You know, it's an active history. It's a hybrid urbanity. Ti amo, Diego. To know, I don't know. Anyway, young or not so young people who wanted to explain to express their love. Again, ti amo, and the heart sign, and so on. Why not? What would the church mean if we wouldn't also have, you know, signs of something else? And after all, what is more sacred than love? Ti amo. Back to the city. I mean, those were actually close to this church, maybe on some panel, part of the construction site of the church. And now I enter and look at the building. It's massive. It's big. It's monumental. It's everything a church should be, perhaps. It's the house of God, after all. I photographed, and you'll see now various photographs. The ceiling, very, very impressive, but I didn't like, as I said, and you see even the camera didn't like this excessive ornamentation. So the camera got troubled itself. I like to think that because of that reason. But the photographs looking upwards are still okay, I would say. But these I hated. I hated these. I confess. I like ornaments, but not like this. They bothered me because they were just decoration, actually, not ornaments, but decoration, and abusive. They were done later. You can even tell from the pictorial technique. This is not Renaissance here in any way, no. Well, the Italians, with all their history and all their culture, sometimes make mistakes too, of course. Even the birthday cakes the Italians sell sometimes are kind of like these decorations. You know, they are hard to look at. Forget about eating them. Yeah, I neglected at I regretted at Sant'Andrea the excessive ornamentation or decoration. It's just too much, and it's not Alberti now. Alberti is here in the clarity of the general conception, the covering of the space, the light. Back to Florence, back in the bus, back on the madness of the highway. That's why we have wars for gasoline. In order to, what do you think there is in all these huge vehicles? Probably stupidities, you know, things that sell, you know, ridiculous things. That's what we need the gasoline for, you know, to fill the highways of the world, transporting all kinds of nonsense from one place to another. Anyway, sorry for my criticism. It is evening. I am in Florence. And I'm nostalgic. The next day I was leaving, and you will see a few things before I leave. I am in front of Santa Maria del Fiore with a great dome by Brunelleschi, but with my back towards it, and I am actually on the street where my hostel was, here somewhere on the right, and I regret badly that it's not functioning any longer. But I did go with some students from the university here one winter there. Anyway, a great Renaissance Palazzo, Michelozzi, and around the corner is San Lorenzo, which you already saw. Yeah, I think this was very early in the morning. It was not in the evening, very early in the morning. The daylight didn't come yet. The great stones of Michelozzi's palace, Palazzo, you know, the reality of these stones is amazing. The weight, the dimensions, the massivity. I love stones in general. And I agree with Lina Bobardi that through implication, when she wrote Stones Against Diamonds, that stones are more important than diamonds. I would agree with her, but diamonds still sell for much more money than diamonds, because people love glittering things. They don't like the greatness, the greatness of the stones. Unfortunately, they like glittering things, expensive things, diamonds. But Lina Bobardi was right. I am, you know, by now where these arches are at or from, Santa Maria Novella, Alberti, and the day is coming. It already came, full of tourists, many tourists, and I'm going to enter Santa Maria del Fiore. Look at them. You know, this is not easily possible now because of the pandemic. I am inside. Unfortunately, I failed with my photographs inside Santa Maria del Fiore with a great dome by Brunelleschi, but that's where I am. It doesn't do justice to the building at all, my photographs, and I apologize. But you can get a glimpse. Look at it. It's terrible, and I'm ashamed of me as a photographer. It shouldn't be in this presentation, but this is the truth. This was the truth about me then. So this was the dome, the great dome, and this is the great dome by Brunelleschi, but taken by a much less than great photographer, the picture, and other pathetic pictures. Here maybe you see a little better, but it's very hard, even if with good function, well-functioning cameras. I don't think you can capture easily the majestic space unless you see also the people and then you realize the scale, because it's extremely tall and very, very impressive. Okay, before I leave and end this presentation, you will see some images with the pavement inside Santa Maria del Fiore. But still we are seeing, what are we seeing here? We are actually seeing visual representations of the heavens, of the cosmos, of the beyond. This is what the church is supposed to show, no? At least in some parts. And here the church seems small, but it's not small at all. Anyway, as you can see, everybody looks up towards the dome by Brunelleschi. I'm sure even Alberti looked up when he, because it was already built. And now we look at the intricacies and the complexities of the pavement. You know, the flooring of the church is itself a creation and an artistic creation. Why did I do it this way? Because this represents the earth, the terrestrial, and the dome represent the celestial, and there must be a correspondence. Even Alberti, and I have a quotation by him, but on a different PowerPoint presentation, said that when he experienced that what was the cosmic complexities were also present within himself, he felt as if he was a part of the world of the gods. And it's true. I think if you realize this mystical conjunction between the outside and the inside, between the macrocosm and the microcosm, you realize that you are part of a whole, and you feel less alienated, less alone, less afraid. I think that's what he referred to. And the pavement within the church had to have its own character and show creativity, in as much as the dome showed creativity, a different kind of creativity, but nevertheless creativity. Look, it is a pavement that in itself is a creation, and it is a world, and it is a cosmos itself. So we have two cosmoses here. If you can create an impossible plural for the word cosmos, probably not. It's the terrestrial one and the heavenly one. And between them, there is a dialogue. And in between them, there is the human being, because we are with our feet on the earth, but we aspire towards the gods, towards the sky, towards what is above us, or sometimes below us. That's it. Thank you very much, and happy birthday to Alberti. I'm happy that there are still 3 people here.